That's your narrative, Jimmy, but the American people care about their wallets and their safety, not your writer's cherry-picked outrage. The words, delivered not with a roar but with a surgeon's precision, landed in the stunned silence of Studio 6B. The air, crackling just moments earlier with the manufactured energy of a late-night talk show, was suddenly sucked out of the room. Donald Trump, seated opposite Jimmy Fallon, didn't break eye contact. A slight, almost condescending smile played on his lips. He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't gesticulated wildly. He had simply absorbed the blow and returned it with a calm, dismissive lethality that was more shocking than any outburst. Fallon, for his part, looked like a man who had just realized the safety net was gone. The carefully constructed mask of somber, journalistic gravity on his face began to crumble. The planned follow-up questions, the witty retorts, rehearsed in the green room, vanished from his mind. He had gambled everything on this moment, his redemption arc, the clip that would exorcise the ghost of 2016's playful hairstyle. This was supposed to prove, once and for all, that he too could be a serious voice, a David to the Goliath seated before him. He had teed it up perfectly, a brutal montage, a rapid-fire succession of Trump's most incendiary soundbites, expertly edited to paint the picture of a chaotic, unhinged demagogue. The lighting had shifted, casting a dramatic shadow over the guest's chair. The audience, coached to silence, held its breath. Fallon had leaned forward, his voice dripping with the full sincerity of a disappointed father, and asked the question he believed was checkmate. How does the man who says those things and becomes president again? Fallon had asked, expecting a rant, a deflection perhaps, an unhinged tirade about fake news. He had a prepared list of responses ready for each likely scenario. What he hadn't prepared for was grace. He wasn't ready for the quiet, confident dismantling of his entire premise in a single, devastating sentence. Trump's reply wasn't merely a defense, it was an accusation. In one moment, he reframed Fallon not as a journalist, but as a puppet master, and recontextualized the entire multi-million-dollar production, not as an interview, but as a staged attack. The silence that followed felt like an eternity in television time. The smile on Trump's face didn't flicker. He had just turned the soft, flattering lights of Studio 6B into a cold, interrogating glare and aimed them squarely at the host. Jimmy Fallon, the man who built a career on charm and likability, suddenly looked exposed and foolish. In the control room, a producer felt a sinking sensation in his stomach. He knew that what just happened wasn't going to stay in the studio. Before the show's final awkward sign-off, the clip had already escaped, sliced and reshared by unseen digital hands. It didn't just leak, it detonated. The first wave hit X, formerly Twitter, where pro-Trump accounts moved like a digital army, unleashing the 30-second exchange across timelines. The caption was nearly always the same. The video, a study in contrasts, was perfect fuel for the meme-hungry world of social media. On one side, a flustered, slack-jawed Fallon, eyes wide with disbelief. On the other, a composed, smiling Trump, looking like a chess grandmaster who had seen the ambush coming 10 moves in advance. The memes came fast and merciless. One popular format showed a split-screen Fallon's pained expression on top, captioned the gotcha moment you planned in your head. Below it, Trump's calm smirk, captioned the reality you walked into. Trump's cool, composed response was instantly captioned, the reality. Another viral image superimposed Trump's face onto the body of a matador, effortlessly sidestepping a charging red-faced bull with Jimmy Fallon's head. On TikTok, the moment took on a life of its own, raw, visceral, and impossible to ignore. Even young creators who weren't Trump supporters couldn't resist the drama. Using the duet feature, they filmed their own real-time reactions, mouths agape, eyes wide, cringing in second-hand embarrassment, as Fallon unraveled on national television. A new audio trend exploded from Trump's line, "Not your writers." Cherry-picked outrage. It quickly became the go-to soundtrack for mocking anything fake or overproduced reality TV meltdowns, influencer apologies, staged confrontations. The phrase detached from politics and morphed into a Gen Z anthem for calling out hypocrisy. But the cultural blowback against Fallon wasn't just from the right. It was a full-blown pylon. The very supporters who had begged him to get tough were now eerily quiet. Or worse, turning on him. He didn't have to be nasty. One prominent liberal commentator tweeted, "He just had to be smart." He was neither. Another wrote, "Fallon tried to play Stephen Colbert's game, but he forgot Colbert is armed with wit and intelligence." Fallon brought a water pistol to a gunfight. The criticism was relentless and deeply personal. Old clips of Fallon's giggly, fawning interviews with celebrities resurfaced and were ruthlessly juxtaposed against his failed attempt at gravitas, painting him as a desperate fraud. His perceived transgression wasn't simply biased, was incompetence. Mainstream news networks, many of which had anticipated a Trump meltdown, were forced to pivot. Morning shows that had likely planned entire segments dissecting Trump's supposed unraveling instead found themselves analyzing Fallon's on CNN. A panel of grim-faced analysts debated the death of the late-night takedown, openly questioning whether the format had any cultural relevance left. One guest argued, "Trump has inoculated himself against this kind of attack. He absorbs the venom and turns it into fuel. The media still hasn't learned. Fighting him on their turf, by their rules, is a losing game." Fox News, predictably, treated the moment like a national holiday, replaying the clip on loop and hailing it as a masterclass in media jiu-jitsu. Their hosts praised Trump's composure, his presidential demeanor, and his unwavering focus on issues that matter to real Americans. The firestorm even crossed oceans. European news outlets from the BBC to Die Welt ran think pieces on the phenomenon. They weren't just covering a late-night appearance. They were dissecting a shift in the American political landscape. A French newspaper labeled it "Le moment de lambda," moment of calm, arguing that Trump's silence, composure, and strategic restraint had done more damage than 1,000 tweets ever could. Trump had discovered a new, more potent political weapon: strategic tranquility. He had allowed his opponent to self-destruct through his own aggression and hypocrisy, and in doing so, appeared more controlled, more graceful, and more presidential than he had in years. The ripple effect wasn't just a conversation, it was a wholesale reevaluation of how to engage with the most unconventional political figure of the modern era. Days later, long after the trending hashtags had faded and the news cycle had moved on, the moment still lingered. In the quiet solitude of his Mar-a-Lago officer, bounded by towering ceilings and the gilded emblems of a previous presidency, Donald Trump watched the clip again on a large monitor. He didn't watch it with glee or smug satisfaction. He studied it, his expression unreadable, a tumbler of Diet Coke sitting untouched on the polished mahogany desk. He saw what the world saw: the trap, the pivot, the victory. But he also saw something deeper: the exhaustion in Fallon's eyes, the desperate hunger for approval from a coastal elite that had once mocked him and now demanded he perform a very specific kind of political penance. Trump saw a man trapped in a prison of his own making, a jester commanded to play the role of inquisitor. There was no true malice in Fallon, Trump thought, only profound foolishness, a weakness born from the need to be loved by everyone, which ultimately leaves a man respected by no one. The real victory, he reflected, wasn't in the clever comeback his team had once workshopped for such occasions. It was in saying nothing at all. It was never just about the moment, it was about the principle behind the confrontation. For years, every move Trump made had been framed as a breach of decorum, a violation of unspoken rules enforced by the media and political establishment, the self-appointed arbiters of grace, the gatekeepers of acceptable conduct. But under the hot lights of a hostile stage, he flipped the script. In that moment, he was the calm one, the principled one. He refused to play the game of manufactured outrage. He hadn't just dodged a bullet, he had exposed the gun for what it was, a prop in a poorly staged performance. The incident sparked a conversation that echoed far beyond DC or social media. In diners in Ohio, in coffee shops in Arizona, people were talking, and they weren't just talking about Trump or Fallon. They were talking about the exhaustion, the creeping sense that the media wasn't there to inform, but to inflame. That comedy, sports, even daily conversation had been infected by a bitter, joyless political war. Trump's quiet, firm response gave voice to a silent frustration simmering across the country, a frustration with being told what to think and how to feel by elites increasingly detached from reality. He turned off the monitor, the screen going black and reflecting his own image back at him. The fight was far from over. The firestorm of one viral moment was just that, a moment, but a powerful one. It reminded the nation that true strength isn't always in the loudest voice. Sometimes it's found in the quiet, principled stand, the kind that lets your opponent's shouting reveal his own weakness. In the deafening noise of modern discourse, his true power found in the most heroic attack or the calmest response. Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the moments that shape our world.